Welcome to the Mix-Minus podcast. It is Monday, March 12th, 2018, and that can only mean one thing. It is the start of March Madness for another year, and for another year, our good friend Matt O'Daniels rejoins the show to break it all down and to cover up for all of my sins of not covering college basketball as much as I probably should, and then I get all into it now and appear to be an expert. So, Matt, how are we doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Pretty good. I think every year, no matter how much you've watched or how little you've watched or who you've watched, we see the canvas of all the games and you can't not get excited about it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'll be heading to the first round games on Friday here in Charlotte at the Spectrum Center. Pretty excited to see Providence play. And also North Carolina, as well as Virginia, and not to mention the 8-9 Creighton-Kansas State game. The only downside to that is missing the rest of the games. Basically, Thursday and Friday are like my Christmas. Always take time off of work to watch the games, basically for 12 hours, and hope you get lucky. But I was last at the tournament in 2015. I saw Lavin Coach's last game with St. John's as they lost to San Diego State. But I also saw eventual national champion Duke play with Okafor and the rest. So that was kind of cool. Anxious to see Virginia in person. And, just lucky to have the tournament kind of down the road for me this year.
Has this been a good college basketball season?
I think it has. A lot of people say it's mediocre. I would disagree. I say it's a lot of parity. And obviously, each year you're going to have teams that are upset who aren't in the tournament that probably should be. Once again, we had that this year as a few, probably more than normal, had gripes, legitimate gripes that weren't able to get to the field of 68 this year. However, I'm just excited. It's really, it's on any given day, it really is. And that's so cliche, and I hate saying that, but I don't think you have a real clear cut. But number one, Virginia, has there, to my brother's point, has there ever been like Virginia is so kind of foreign. Like they don't seem to be getting covered. I don't know. Maybe I'm watching the wrong outlets, but I think that Virginia might be so good that might be the best number one team that maybe no one knows anything about,
Well, no one really does it that way through all defense, right? I mean, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of old school. I mean, it's funny that I guess Tony Bennett is originally from Wisconsin, because I was almost thinking to myself, he should be Bo Ryan and coach in Wisconsin. You know what I mean? It's like, it's old school, and it's something else. I mean, I have been seeing some commentary from just normal Twitter users or people who are not hardcore into the game, maybe the NBA people, and I've seen some people say, boy, it's a thing of beauty watching that defense. So Virginia's got to kind of move along, but they could be picked off because of that. I mean, was it last year they got picked off where the offense just no-showed? I mean, you need a little bit of that offense. It's sort of like football that way.
Yeah, and like they should have lost to Louisville if Louisville wins that game. It was so crazy. I was at work and I turned to my head. I forget what games I was doing that day, but I turned to my left and I saw that Louisville had the game in the bag. Next thing I know, my friend's like, Virginia just won due to a traveling violation on the inbounds pass. But I also will say, let's not get confused with this Virginia defense with the UNLV amoeba defense. I mean, it's good, but I mean, I think, like you said, they got picked off last year. I don't want to raise it that high. Once again, I think Virginia has something to prove because they haven't gotten to the Final Four, at least under Bennett, and they always seem to be favored, but never seem to come through. But anyway, very interesting and very excited to see them play on Friday.
What became the couple of most exciting things you saw this year watching college basketball through and through?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you to begin with is it's Trae Young. Trae Young came out of the gates blazing. I mean, the guy was averaging, he led the nation in points and assists. Obviously, that's why they got into the tournament. If you don't have a Trae Young, you're not going to have that draw to draw the eyeballs to the TV sets. That was a huge story for me. I like the Cincinnati and Xavier kind of dominating their leagues. I mean, Xavier didn't win the Big East. Villanova is still cream of the crop in the Big East, but I liked watching Xavier and Cincinnati. kind of dominate their regular season play. They're two very good teams from the state of Ohio, actually from the same city, actually, despite Cincinnati playing at Northern Kentucky while their gym is being renovated this year. And I also think that Arizona State, I'm just surprised that they got in. But that being said, they have an interesting matchup in the first round against Syracuse, which a lot of people are saying Syracuse shouldn't be in. Syracuse, look at Syracuse's schedule, their non-conference schedule. They're playing Iona in the tournament. They're playing Buffalo in the tournament. They're playing Akron. They're playing tough teams, non-conference, and then they play in the ACC. So the idea that Syracuse shouldn't be in, I think that's ridiculous. But I can see the other side of it too. I just think Syracuse deserve to be in. But that game in particular, I'm excited because they got kind of screwed last year.
Trae Young has a little bit of the old BCS where you kind of pick the team to get in there because they travel well and because it's such a dynamic, electric story. The way he started, you just can't not have him in this thing. And I actually started to really pick up watching him. Usually college basketball finds me if I'm watching SportsCenter, and if a story is so good, it always finds you. And what he was doing on the court was so outstanding and exceptional that it found you. Everybody was talking about it. SportsCenter was leading with it. Any website from ESPN, Sports, everyone was talking about it. And then I start turning on and watching as the year turns over, and they fell apart. What do you think happened? Is it just that Oklahoma was really not that good of a team and he was kind of raising them up, and then they started getting exposed when they got into conference play? Do you think he got tired? He's almost the guy in the 5K who runs out ahead of everyone, and you're like, whoa, that guy's not like that. And then you get a mile in, and then the guy's walking. I'm not really sure where he is, but he's certainly electric and fun to watch, and you hope he can get a little bit of fire and a spur in him to carry into the tournament a little bit and have almost a Steph Curry run, because people are talking about him almost as a Steph Curry, Damian Lillard type. Damian Lillard never played in the tournament, if I'm not mistaken. You went there to Weber State, but I think we really, Trae Young can kind of cover up for that down play by having a Steph Curry-like run now.
Absolutely. And, a lot of people talk about Kelvin Sampson Lon Kruger is a great coach, I think what he does, the programs, is he goes in there, rebuilds, gets players. Florida, Illinois, UNLV, what have you. But I think the Big 12 was it was like the grinder this year. It really was. And Oklahoma's a real young team. I'm not taking it's tough for me to. It's funny. Like a week and a half ago, I was in a group text, and it was in my mind. No matter what, Trae Young and Oklahoma are going. No matter what, that in my mind, it was already decided. Despite their 8-10 record in the Big 12 and finishing 6th and all that, because he draws. He's that good. You want to showcase that player. Doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it any better for if you're an Oklahoma State fan. But I also think the Sooners are just young, and they have no seniors on there. Oh, they have one senior on their team. But I just think I don't know. I think Trae Young is that captivating of a player, that dynamic of a talent to all of a sudden turn it on, and they could make a run. Obviously, he's got young players around him that play very well too, but that's why they're in. It's like the elephant in the room, and no one wants to admit that, but there it is.
Will you actually be excited to watch him at the next level?
It's weird because currently I get the Sacramento Kings, and I'm getting a lot of Grizzlies games. I'm the new guy, so I get a lot of Orlando Magic, Phoenix Suns type games. So I'm getting not really good games. But he's that good. He's that good.
Well, you're going to see him go on one of those teams. So who do you think, watching those dregs of the NBA, who do you think he would be most fun on? My idea is I want him on Orlando. I think Orlando has played too long with this drafting the right player at the spot each time, and they just don't have anyone electric. And I think Orlando is the right place for him. It's the right city. He'll be able to be in obscurity a little bit, but then when he has his moments, he'll be in the limelight. Everyone will bring back the old Penny Shaq look at Orlando and how that used to be, even though Orlando was only in the finals, in 2009, I believe, with Dwight. But I think he's that kind of electric, captivating player, and I would love to see him on Orlando above almost any of the teams.
I'd like to see him on Sacramento, but that's just me.
But they got Fox.
Why not? Who cares? I mean, see, that's the problem with the NBA, in my opinion, is you have all these young guys that really haven't proven themselves. It's all based on potential, and so you don't really know what you're getting. And to me, it's like that's the problem. It's not a problem. Or maybe if he goes to Memphis, it's a little closer to Oklahoma than Orlando. But as far as that's concerned, I think he'll do well wherever he goes because he's going to get a lot of playing time because he is that good.
You know, it's kind of scary if he went to Sacramento, is the ghosts of Christmas past, Buddy Hield being there. Because Buddy Hield, we're used to that Oklahoma jersey looking electric, putting up 40-something point games. And he was as electric as they come. He did play 4 years, and he became more electric as he went. And it was really his senior year where he took off. But he went to the NBA, and I mean, he was traded halfway through his first year in the DeMarcus Cousins deal. And he has not really acquitted himself very well or gotten into the public eye very much out there in Sacramento. And he's already, 25 maybe at this point.
When you said ghost, I thought of Bobby Hurley, like injuries. So sorry. Anyway, he'll be coaching. He'll be coaching the Sun Devils against. I don't know. I think wherever Trae Young goes, it's going to be fun.
All right. Well, why don't we get into this thing that we're supposed to be talking about 11 minutes later or 12 minutes later?
Well, here's my question before we start. Do you have any comment on the Michigan State, Tom Izzo, that whole deal? Like, it just kind of gets glossed over, that whole situation.
I think it's been glossed over well, I guess, because it sort of took a back seat. So many perceived bad things happened in college basketball that it almost hid behind a lot of it. And I think all of us understand that a lot of this stuff happens at most of the schools. If what's happening at Michigan State, which is supposed to be a really clean program or whatever, and they're hiding that kind of stuff, that's going to be kind of par for the course for, I think, a lot of programs. There's a lot of, I mean, you probably saw it even at Weber State. Not that I'm not trying to say it definitely was, but everywhere you go, when you have star potential athletes at a place where you need leverage over them, not leverage over them, but you need them to play for you to save your jobs, as coaches and assistant coaches, and where the administration needs those players and teams to do really well to get money in there to help with the sports program and to help with the school overall, a lot of things get kind of looked the other way. And I think what we saw with the Penn State thing, which was a different story, a lot of these things that are not directly sport related, nobody really wants to talk about or get into. They want to kind of turn a blind eye to it and hope it just works itself out. The next group of kids will come in. Those kids will move on. But, I mean, we've had this conversation about college sports for several years on the podcast and off the podcast. But how do you allow that? How do you allow all that outside stuff to come into the equation as you're watching the games? I mean, what do you think of Michigan State?
Well, I think they're a great team. It's just, and they've kind of weathered the storm. I just think moving forward, it's 2018. So it's like moving forward with everybody getting connected with all this technology. Moving forward, you'll have the old guard moved out, and something like that bad will perhaps, be alerted earlier. Be brought out in the spotlight. It's just incredible to me. And I'm not trying to, pick on Michigan State. It just happens to be, I just looked at them and I said, wow, at one point I thought this guy was going to be gone. Not that it's Tom Izzo's fault directly. It's just incredible. But so moving forward with everybody with the technology and the communication, hopefully, something like this won't linger as long as it did and, be brought out and people, I'm not the judge. I'm just saying it's just awfully interesting how in these times where everyone's connected, that this was kind of still somehow, able to be swept under the rug. You know what I mean?
Completely. And one of the problems I do have with it all is when news outlets want to try to give the teams some kind of credit for overcoming the adversity that they themselves wrought on themselves. Like when people were going, whether Arizona is true or not, we're all going to guess it's true, right? I mean, whatever, yeah. But you don't get like the top player out of the Bahamas. I mean, $100,000 is pretty good. It's a pretty good amount when he's going to make $10 million in a couple of years in his contract status. But when you're reading about it and it's like they overcame all of the distractions and all this, and it's like they knew all about this the whole time. What do you mean they overcame the distractions?
These are our educators. It's incredible.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, in some ways, the college game are led by like CEOs of smaller local organizations, and the NBA is kind of run by Fortune 500 CEOs. They all do the same kind of stuff. They all hide the same kind of ills when they need to. But the Fortune 500 executive is a lot better at doing it than the local Hertz CEO. And I think there's a lot of that snake oil in college sports. You have to. The competition is unbelievable. How many people are in the game trying to get the same well of players? And I think you got to resort to doing kind of weird things. And maybe untoward things. But it is kind of hypocritical that the next year then it's not crazy to pay that same player. So I don't know where it stands. We'll see where that goes. We'll see how the NBA can jump in. But
and I didn't mean to take it off on a tangent, but like it's just kind of funny. It's just moving forward. You'd hope to think that like, these mature adults, I mean, I'm going to be, I'm 35 years old. These people are like older, these people have like quote unquote standards. It's just awfully interesting that really nothing's changed in 20 years. You know what I mean? It's like,
no.
Holy God. Before I forget, I was watching Fox Sports Southeast the other night, and I saw the Atlanta Hawks practice facility that they share with Emory University. It's like over 100,000 square feet. I mean, it's just incredible with I don't know. If you get a chance to watch, go online and watch that. I was really impressed with what the Hawks are doing, and maybe Trae Young can go to the Hawks. The Hawks are struggling this year.
Yeah, I just think it's funny when it's like, oh my God, they're paying these players. How dare they? Hey guys, where's that check for that $200 million facility? It's like, and what the NCAA just made $1 billion, right? I think it was the first time they surpassed $1 billion. So we know how the whole thing is made. We know how the sausage is made. But for this 1 month, we can all look at the games and focus on that. And all fun.
I didn't mean to take it off on the tangent because I really want to do the games. You know what I mean?
It always goes there. So let's go in order from our dates so that this thing can carry us through. Right away, we got a game tomorrow night with LIU Brooklyn. Whoa. 18 and 16. Going against Radford. Anything here?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You have Clark Kellogg. You have Derek Kellogg. Who coached UMass he was in the backcourt for Calipari. He coached the UMass, won the NCAA tournament in 9 years at UMass. First year in LIU Brooklyn, they beat Wagner in the NEC final at Wagner, and Radford got him on a buzzer beating Big South. They're in the Big South. They had the buzzer beater. I don't know if you saw it. It was one of the best moments so far in March, and not to be confused with the NJIT Highlanders, the Radford Highlanders, LIU Brooklyn. I think it's a toss-up, really. It could be anybody.
Next up's a kind of good game here. St. Bonaventure up against UCLA. UCLA is free of the Ball brothers, obviously, but they're right back here. Aaron Holiday stepped in and had a very nice season, and St. Bonaventure has Jalen Adams, nice guard matchup there. This looks like it'll be a good one.
Yeah, and that's probably the best Holiday brother out of all of the three of them, from what I've watched and from what I've heard. But he's really damn good. But St. Bonaventure's got a good 1-2 guard combo. Yeah, like you said, Adams and Mobley. they're pretty good. I mean, they're probably top 5 backcourts in the land, and that's saying something. Very exciting, high-paced, up and down the floor, end-to-end action you'll be getting in that game.
Are we surprised that they didn't put Oklahoma into one of these play-in situations so you get the full Trae Young display?
Great point. Feature game Tuesday night, all eyes glued. Fabulous point. Little surprise there, but they made up for it. I think you're going to get some good games regardless. But Oklahoma travels well, so I think they wanted the Thursday night action, or the Friday night, excuse me, instead of the Tuesday.
So next day, more playing games. We have Texas Southern, 15-19.
Mike Davis, baby.
Mike Davis playing North Carolina Central.
Yeah, you gotta like Mike Davis. I mean, basically, I think they started the year 0-13, if I'm right. I don't know what you have in front of you, but they basically started horrible. But Davis has kind of created a mini dynasty in the SWAC. I mean, they're like a powerhouse in the league. I wonder about his future moving forward. But for NC Central, it's their third appearance in the 5 years, who upset number 1 Hampton. And I don't know, once again, toss up. I really have no gauge on this game, even though I live across the state line in South Carolina. But once again, toss up.
And then another good 11-11 matchup, Syracuse at Arizona State, as you said. Bobby Hurley, Jim Boeheim. And I'm wondering if Syracuse, because I saw Clemson is really good this year, right? So in some ways, the Clemsons of the world seem to almost be replacing what Syracuse was, where you had the great football, you had the great basketball, and now Syracuse is sort of getting, I know they got to their 20 wins and all that, but they kind of have an also-ranish feeling to them, whereas schools like Clemson are ascending.
Well, it's weird. You know, Clemson's never beat North Carolina and Chapel Hill in 56 tries. How crazy is that when you think about it? But to your point, I actually did the Syracuse-Clemson game two weeks ago up at the Carrier Dome, and Clemson almost tied it at the end at the buzzer of a half-court 3. I just thought Syracuse, they're like kind of, not in a funk, but like they play in – the ACC is top to bottom, the toughest league. I mean, Big 12 was really good this year. I'm not taking anything away from them. But, like, the ACC is so damn tough. They just might have had an off year, but I think this year was a repayment for last year's, snub.
Then we move into the fun day, Thursday, which I almost think is better than Friday because of the sort of like how Christmas Eve can be better than Christmas. You just kick off the games, and right away, as you said, first game up, 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time, Oklahoma and the 10 seed against Rhode Island and the 7 seed, another Hurley brother, this one Danny, right out there in Pittsburgh, PA. You got Trae Young with his 27.5 points per game, nearly 9 assists per game. This is going to be fun to watch, and you're going to have, about 25 minutes before the next game starts. So he's going to be all eyes right off the bat. And
exactly, that's why they did that. They moved that game for Thursday afternoon. And I saw that. I caught the A-10 final. McKillop does a great job with Davidson. I'm not just saying that because I'm down here in Carolinas, but they were like, there's just so much more organized, so much more well-coached, not taking anything away from Hurley. But it seems like, on senior night, they lost to St. Joe's by 20 at home. What's that all about? They're a guard-oriented offense. They jack a lot of threes. And their roster is pretty good. They have 6 guards. But, it's not brain surgery. If you make shots, you win. If you don't, you don't. And also, there's also that, that speculation that could be a distraction. The Pitt and UConn job openings. There's some rumblings that whether or not Dan Hurley's going to go there. So you have that too. Is he even, you know what I mean? So there's a lot there. And obviously got to contend with Trae Young. So
it's going to be a good one. Next up, 12:40 p.m., we have Wright State and Tennessee, 14 and 3 seed. I was watching a little bit of Tennessee in that game against Kentucky. They got some fight to them. Their football team could use some of that.
Ain't that the truth? Rick Barnes has got the Volunteers rocking. It's Tennessee.
UNC Greensboro and Gonzaga, 13-4 matchup. Boise, Idaho, Taco Bell Arena. Gonzaga, it was only last year they were in the final game, right?
Yeah, they lost in the final last year.
Yeah, to UNC. Now, I didn't even look this up. They lost their really good guard, right? Because he was a senior, the transfer?
Yeah, and they lost Karnowski.
That's
a big man as well.
But they're right back here, 30 wins, 30-4. So 4 seed. Doesn't seem like they've lost a ton.
I mean, I just think Gonzaga they're not as good as they were last year, but they're gonna take care of UNC Greensboro.
Next up, we got UPenn and Kansas. Number 1 seed Kansas. What was it? 14th Big Ten title in a row. I think that was. Is that a record? They are what we know they are, and they're going to obviously dispatch of Penn. We'll have to see, though, how Kansas does, I guess, going into the next rounds. They're very formidable, but they tend to almost have like an Atlanta Braves feel to them, a 90s Atlanta Braves feel to them.
That's a great point. One of these days, and I hope, I kind of want to see Virginia lose just because I'll be at the game, but one of these days the one's going to go down, unfortunately not in Wichita, which will be a home game for the Jayhawks. And I saw Penn play. So just, it's apples to oranges. You just can't, I don't think Penn will do it.
Then we got Iona and Duke, the 15-2. The 15-2 is where there tend to be upsets. I'm guessing it's not going to be here. We have the very highly touted potential number 1 draft pick, Marvin Bagley III, 21 points per game, 11.5 rebounds, 1.6 assists. I believe he gets a good amount of blocks. He had some missed time this year, but it's going to be worth, as long as Duke is playing, watching what he can do if you are someone who is focused on the next level.
Yeah, he's a player of the year, freshman of the year, a lefty. Yeah, Duke's pretty solid. I mean, Iona's going to come to play. Tim Kluse has kind of made a little run there up at Iona, and they're tough guys, the whole nine. But Duke is Duke. You got this, I think really a lot of it has to do with Grayson Allen, how he, leads the team, and I think he's primed to go win another title. And it also helps when you have Marvin Bagley, who's probably obviously going to be a lottery pick.
When I was reading up on the tournament, there seemed to be some kind of hipster status to Loyola Chicago. 11 seed, 28-5, and they will be playing number 6 Miami, who went 22-9 down in Dallas, Texas. What are we seeing there?
Well, see, what I see is with Larinaga, I just don't know what I'm going to get. I mean, they're not going to have Bruce Brown available. Miami isn't. They got a pair of freshmen, Likes and Walker. Likes is 5'7", real quick guard. But, it's been a milestone. It's been a breakout year for the Ramblers. That's a great name. The Ramblers of Loyola Chicago, who, they shoot, they have 4 3-point shooters who shoot 38% or better. They won the Valley. I don't know. If there's an upset, and a lot of people, like you said, it's been kind of like the sexy pick to pick Loyola. I wouldn't be surprised. The problem is that Miami, you just don't know. They could be really hot. They could be really cold. I'm going to pick Miami only because I really like their front line. I think they're just bigger and stronger and deeper than Loyola.
You sound like you watched some Loyola. How did that come to be? How did you know to watch them, and how do you just fall on a Loyola game?
Well, Matt, when you're single and you got really nothing going on a Wednesday night in the middle of January, you kind of lock into these games. No, I mean, it's like I've always had a passion for college basketball. I just always have. Really surprised that Middle Tennessee isn't in this year. But, losing their last game to Mike D'Antoni's brother Dan at Marshall, who has won the Conference USA game, or Conference USA Conference Tournament this year. I got locked into these teams. I love Xavier. Absolutely love Xavier. I'm not trying to go all over the place, but I just have a huge passion for college basketball. Love Providence too. And Marshall's an interesting team, but I got into Loyola because, you have basically teams that have left. I mean, Wichita State left the Valley to go to the American. And so remember like 10 years ago, it was like Southern Illinois. They got really popular with Bruce Weber.
You know what I mean? Salukis?
Right, yeah. So Bruce Weber was their coach, and the Valley kind of got this kind of not cult following, but then they had Creighton for a little bit. They had Corver. I don't know. They're kind of like a nice mid-major conference to get into. A little bit nicer than the West Coast Conference, in my opinion. A little bit tougher of a conference, and probably I don't know. That's how I got into the Valley. They have the Arch Madness. They have the first conference tournament the week before, so you get wrapped up into it, and that's how I got wrapped up into it.
Next up, we got South Dakota State and Ohio State back in Boise at Taco Bell Arena. Nice comeback year from what I see for Ohio State. The Butler, it was the former Butler coach, right, who came in and took over for Thad Matta, who stepped away, and it seemed like Ohio State might kind of step down from the perch they had ascended to over time, and this coach got them right back there.
Yeah, but I want to talk about South Dakota State. I don't think they get a lot of credit. I think they're, I don't know. I just think they're a gritty team that just, they're very tough. And, Ohio State probably wins, but, Holtman proved himself at Butler. I kind of thought you're obviously going to make that jump. I just thought it would be bad for Butler. But Butler's back in. But Holtman's a good coach, and I'd love to see the Jackrabbits win. But I think Ohio State plays a tougher. They're just bigger, tougher. They got more talent. They're deeper. They probably outlast the Jackrabbits. That's providing Mike Daum, number 24 for South Dakota State. He's probably one of the best mid-major players in the country, and exciting player to watch if you have a shot of watching this game. Mike Daum, Mike Daum, he's pretty good.
Yeah, they got about 24 points per game, 10.5 rebounds. Yep. That's pretty good numbers, 20 and 10.
Yeah, he's like I don't know. He's their motor, and you'd like to see, if you're a South Dakota State fan, you'd like to see, as he goes, the Jackrabbits go. But I'd be very surprised to see an upset in this game.
Is he undersized? No, he's 6'9".
I want to say he's like 6'10", right?
Yeah, but pretty
6'9",
legit
6'10".
though. Is it power or it's power forward, right?
Yeah, he goes inside out, but he shoots 42% from three. So it's like he's like I don't know who you could compare him to.
Kevin Love?
I'm going something like that. Maybe a stockier. Yeah, I guess Kevin Love.
Yeah, that's saying quite a bit. Kevin Love's a very, very good player, but I'm just looking for analogs. Right. Next up, we got NC State, who somehow last year had a lottery pick and didn't make it, and now here they are at 21-11, playing Seton Hall, who I think this is year 3 in a row, and they got to win one because they haven't won one yet.
Yeah, you got to think this is probably the most evenly matched 8-9 matchup in my opinion. Carrington's awesome. Delgado, Rodriguez, they're pretty damn good. And you like to see them win, although the new coach for NC State, he's the former UNC Wilmington coach, young guy. I think he's like our age. And, they beat UNC, Duke, and Clemson. So it's as far as this is a very well – I like this game. This is a very well evenly matched game. And I'm going to say the Wolfpack are going to win because I saw them play a little bit more than Seton Hall this year, and I like the Pack.
That would be a real letdown for Seton Hall. It almost throws some water on 3 straight appearances to not advance once. You just gotta. Did they advance? They didn't advance on a play-in, right? They lost.
I'm trying to rack my brain right now.
I can't recall that one because that's what happens when you don't win. It's hard to recall. But yeah, I think they gotta. Whereas NC State is probably happy to be there this year, Seton Hall's got to they got to win a game here.
Why?
I feel like they have to. I think Delgado came back when he didn't necessarily have to, and you're 21-11. You got to build on this. 3 appearances in a row is fantastic. I just think you're expecting a little more. I feel like they just got to do this. They got to do it. I'm not.
Or Rutgers is going to steer the Thunder, or what?
They're taking it. Rutgers is taking it. Yeah, but I don't know. Just for those kind of things, I just think you gotta win one to get some good feeling on top of this good feeling. I mean, I'm not saying what they have done is not impressive, but I don't know. I just feel like they got to get something on the board here.
Like a run to, like, basically Willard's got to get to a Sweet 16. I mean, they did win the it was 2 years ago they won the Big East tournament, which was pretty damn good.
Oh yeah,
and,
no, that was really good, and a lot of people got real fired up about that here. It was, it's fantastic, and I'm not saying he's in no trouble, but even just get one, just get to 32. You got to get to the weekend.
You're right. I couldn't agree with you more.
Next up, we have TBD against Villanova. Because it doesn't matter. This one is not going down.
Villanova is so freaking good.
It's really
incredible.
Are.
I mean, like I mentioned before, I had the Providence beat Villanova on Valentine's Day, and I had that game, and that was pretty cool to watch Providence win. But Villanova is just, they got a great freshman. Obviously, the coach, you got Brunson, who's just he's just so sound. It's hard to explain if you're not a basketball dork, but yeah, I mean, they're just so good. It's like they're the big gun in the Big East, and you expect them to basically waltz into the Sweet 16.
Now, we're not there yet, but Alabama and their lottery guard Sexton and Avery Johnson, I feel like they could be a real fun matchup for.
It probably is. It would be more exciting, I think, too, because you have Alabama, who basically, when Avery got there 2 years ago, it was kind of a joke. Like, he even said, I was listening to him, he even said that it was kind of, he couldn't, he's up for the challenge, but when he first walked on, it was our first practice 2 years or 3 years ago, he was like, oh my gosh, like, this is what I have to work with. Now, during the tournament, I don't know. It'd be exciting. I'd like to see that because Avery's a fun guy. He's a guy I root for because, I don't know, there's something about him I like. And I don't know. Virginia Tech doesn't do it for me. They're just kind of boring.
Yeah, in all their sports, kind of, except when Michael Vick was there.
Right.
Did you hear that thing about Avery Johnson and how Nick Saban has one of the most competitive pickup basketball leagues in the history of coaches?
I did hear about that.
And he's apparently a lefty point guard. And the minute Avery became the head coach of Alabama basketball, Nick was recruiting him to be on his team, on the pickup team. And apparently the pickup team is like the Harlem Globetrotters to the Generals. They just destroy. And it's one of the most competitive things in Nick Saban's life, which says a lot.
And to your point, I work with a girl who just graduated from Alabama. So yeah, I've heard a little bit about that.
Pretty funny. This looks like a great game. 7:10 p.m. We'll all be home. Davidson, 12 seed, 5 seed Kentucky. Kentucky had the feel of sort of a transitional Kentucky type team, and then they kind of turned it on. And all of a sudden, if they make a run here, we might have some new household names.
Exactly, and you're exactly right. They turned it on, and I love Davidson, but they got no. I mean, unless I just don't see. I think Kentucky's on right now, and I think they're primed to. They could make the Final Four. I mean, they're that good because they're that mysterious, and they haven't really proven it. I mean, look, they're always getting cream of the crop talent, and with that, you get hot right now, you can go all the way. It's too bad for a team like Davidson, who basically busted a lot of bubbles, similar to San Diego State, and they get matched up against a more athletic Wildcats.
Well, it's amazing how even in a quote unquote down year with the players, Kentucky still has 2 projected first rounders on the team.
Incredible.
In freshman Kevin Knox, small forward. And then, of course, keeping the tradition of hyphenated players alive in Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, freshman point guard. So it's almost like one of those series on network TV that goes on for 20 years, and they always have new players and new people who keep the franchise going. And no matter what the naysayers do say, they continue on. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. Next up, we have San Diego State against Houston. What an interesting one. So San Diego State, the lead assistant under Fisher is now the coach there, right? And then for crying out loud, there I am watching that tournament. Was it what's Houston in? The
American.
The American.
And they throw the ball away yesterday.
And I'm sitting there watching that, and I go, "Oh my God, Kelvin Sampson! There are 9 lives for every cat in this coaching profession in college." This guy coaches them back up 26-7, and there is no way in hell that they're not doing shady things to get this done.
He's sending 540 texts. No, I'm just kidding. But, I mean, what a story. A guy who started coaching at like some junior college in Butte, Montana, and now he's got what I said earlier, his third or fourth program into the field of 68. And Houston, I want to say, is like a Cincinnati light. They're really not flashy. They're grinders. I did their quarterfinal game, and it's just they're weird. They got a good point guard, but they're strange. And for San Diego State, they got I want to say I don't know how you describe them, but you got Trey Kell, and that's the guard who does everything. Who I saw play 4 years ago when he was a freshman against they beat St. John's, and they got Malik Pope. The Aztec seniors, and you'd think, I don't know, Houston's so weird. I don't know. This is a fun. I'm picking up San Diego State just because I like their athleticism, and if they get hot, I like them getting hot, and Houston just kind of getting flustered because they're just Cincinnati light, and I don't know if they can counter if San Diego State gets hot. But that's just me. But Houston's well coached. They got some players.
Next up, Stephen F. Austin playing Texas Tech in Dallas, and I saw Texas Tech described as the Virginia of the Big 12.
Yeah, and no one in America has seen Stephen F. Austin. I don't know if, and that's crazy. It's going to be in Texas, in Dallas. I mean, while if there were a 14-3, if you're going to pick an upset, I mean, I think you go with this one. I don't even know if people are even going to do that, but a lot of people are high on Texas Tech, but I just don't think a lot of people have seen Stephen F. Austin. So I'm going with the Lumberjacks.
We kind of talked Alabama, Virginia Tech already. Buffalo against number 4 Arizona, and this is one of those teams you want to watch. As we said, they're overcoming adversity that they created, but they have DeAndre Ayton as their center. And really, this year is kind of all about these bigs reasserting themselves at the top of the draft. We'd kind of gone to this guard-heavy, pace and space. Before that, the dribble drive motion. And there was sort of this feeling that the big man is a dinosaur now that can't exist in this game. And I've always felt, I'm the only one who feels this, just kidding. But I've always felt that when the great big man comes along, all that stuff can get thrown out the window. Because the great big man still has an advantage that no one has. You're going to tell me that prime Shaq can't walk into this NBA and dominate? I don't think so. But this year is showing you that the bigs are reasserting. And a lot of that reason comes around DeAndre Ayton, who has an unbelievable wingspan. He's kind of a legit 7-footer, right? Or pretty close. Yep. And he's really worth watching. A lot of people have kind of said he doesn't play that hard. He's coasting. And then he's like, I am playing hard, man. What are you talking about? How can you tell me I'm not playing hard? And maybe he's just kind of got that Wilt Chamberlain-ish feel to his game where it looks like he's playing at half speed, but that's really the special aspect to him. What have you thought about watching him? And then is there anything we should look with Buffalo to?
Well, I mean, Nate Oates is the coach on the rise for from the MAC in Buffalo, who play at a frenetic pace. Veteran-laden squad. Wes Clark is probably another great mid-major player. But like you said, Ayton is probably the best player in the country right now. So, I mean, I don't know if anybody stayed up late to watch the Pac-12 championship game, but DeAndre Ayton put on I don't want to steal this from Marv, but a clinic. It was incredible. Dunking all over the place, inside out. He's just got a nice touch around the rim. He crashes the boards. Obviously, it helps when you have, Arizona guard. With a team like Arizona, they get criticized for not, breaking through, not getting to the Final Four. This is probably the year they do it, provided they beat Virginia. But I mean, Ayton's I mean, you got to watch Ayton. With the exception of, I love Wagner from Michigan. He's so fun to watch. But Ayton is just phenomenal. Well,
it goes back to that old adage: play as if the FBI is on your tail. Just kidding. Play each day as if a spook is watching.
As if a phone is tapped.
Oh. Next up, speaking to Mo, I love how they're like Mo Wagner when his name is Moritz, because it's kind of a weird first name. Montana and Michigan over there in Wichita. John Beeline, I don't know anything about Montana.
Well, speaking of Montana, Big Sky Conference champion, Montana at 26-7. I mean, awesome year from the Grizz. They've kind of solidified their, dominance among the Big Sky the last few years. Them and Weber State kind of going toe-to-toe. But here's the tie-in with the German Montana to Wagner Montana, because there's a guy on San Diego State whose last name is Montana. Basically, the guy, Max Montana, the 6'9" forward from San Diego State, he changed his name to Max Montana from Max Hutzel. He can't pronounce it. Anyway, I think that was funny. And so the German changed his last name to Montana. Now we got a German in Michigan playing Montana. Anyway, so I love Wagner's game. I also like Beeline. I think he's a good coach. And Montana's going to put a tough matchup. But I like the Wolverines. I really do. I thought they did a tremendous job in the Big Ten this year. And I think they're extremely well coached. I don't know why I like Beeline. I just like them.
Yeah, there's something nice about it.
But I don't know how that whole Montana German thing it's funny how it all just kind of, it really is. The guy changed his last name to Montana. His last name's Montana. Anyway.
Next up, final game of the day. On that day, Thursday, we have Florida facing TBD. But in the case, it could be a good one. It could be UCLA. Or it could be St. Bonaventure. How about Florida UCLA in a first-round game? That's not bad.
And I don't think the St. Bonaventure game would be bad either. I actually like both a lot. It's like Florida's not getting any respect, at least in this game. From all of the articles I've read, they've kind of been given absolutely. They've been like Dangerfield this year. At least in the brief 2 days that I've had, been able to dissect this stuff. And I don't know. I'd personally like to see St. Bonaventure or UCLA win, just because I've seen them more. Florida doesn't do it for me, but they probably, they could win. I'm taking the 11 seed, whoever it is.
I'll tell you, that's not a terrible draw to get to a Sweet 16.
It really isn't. It really isn't.
That's that is not too bad. And then when you look at, which we'll get to those games.
Well, you're going to play Purdue, but that's about it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So that is our Thursday. I'm always like, yeah, we're doing so well, and not that we're not doing well against our artificial made-up time limits. But now we're on to Friday. Right off the bat, number 10, Providence.
Love Providence.
At Texas A&M, and Providence is one of those nice stories because they went on a run, and it's always fun to see a team go on a run and earn their place.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's not like Texas A&M isn't good. Like I said, they play in a great league. But I love Cartwright. I mean, he's like an exciting guard for the Friars, and I also like what what's the head coach's name? I'm drawing a blank now.
Cooley.
Gee whiz. Yeah, I also like what Cooley said. You know, he said in the Big East final, he's like, look, if we have Villanova, if we have any team, like Cooley's the guy like who just, I don't know, I believe in him. I like them. They're just gritty. They're not flashy. They're not Cincinnati light. They're a little bit more a more refined Cincinnati. They're a quicker Cincinnati, if that makes any sense. And for what they lack in talent, they just make up for it in perseverance and hard work. And so I'll be at the game cheering hard for the Big East Friars. But Texas A&M, like I said, they come from a tough league this year. Did I say Big 12? I meant SEC. Holy cow.
They should be in the Big 12.
I mean, well, they were. I just had a brain fart. It's just my advice would be to pick the 10 seed. I love Providence in this game. We
have next Cal State Fullerton playing number 2 Purdue. There's a lot of love for Purdue.
They're probably a Final Four team. Honestly, they're that good. You don't want to like them, but they're that good. They got the brothers, and they got the big man, and they're just 1 through 5. I mean, they're just good.
Yeah. Marshall, Wichita State, out in San Diego.
This is Mike D'Antoni's brother, Dan, who coaches for Marshall. This is his fourth year. I had the game at Middle Tennessee State. Middle Tennessee State coming their first top 25 ranking ever on senior night. Spit the bit at home against Marshall. And Dan D'Antoni is just a cool customer, a laid-back guy. He wears a sport jacket with the Marshall T-shirt underneath. It's incredible when you watch it. Really.
Do they play the D'Antoni offense?
See, they run a little bit of that, but it's not. But it's what a story. I don't think Marshall will advance, but that's just because I just don't think they will. I think Wichita State will win.
Good year for the D'Antoni brothers. I do love this. I do love the renaissance of Mike D'Antoni. I think he's got a system, and he had the great tactician to run it in Steve Nash in Phoenix. And so everyone said, oh, is it him? Is it Nash? Is it both? What's the percentage? And then he kind of fell off a bit going to a few places, and then he was down and out. And then he was brought back to Philadelphia to kind of be a understudy coach again. And then all of a sudden, Daryl Morey, that person who was picked out of obscurity to run a team with this almost Moneyball ethic, he brings him out, and then he finds his next generation tactician in James Harden. It's been pretty unbelievable to watch when you think of.
Yeah, I mean, they go as far as CP3 goes. Let's see if he stays healthy.
That's true. Look at you now. You're watching NBA basketball.
Well, look. I don't have a choice. It's my job. I'm doing Phoenix, Memphis. It's incredible. I'm doing. Although I will say, and I have to give kudos and thanks to you. I mean, I remember being at your place. I mean, geez, I probably should have. I mean, it was incredible all the times I was over your place watching hoops. But I remember never knowing anything about Lawler's Law. And you're like, yay, Lawler's Law, first team to 100 wins. I'm in the sports pod. It was November. And all these, well, I work with some guys that don't really care, but I work with like 4 or 5 guys who are like, deep into sports. And I'm like, yeah, Lawler's Law. And they're like, what? What's Lawler's Law? And I took them to the website. I was like, because I got Bowen and Lawler, they're doing the broadcast now. And I was like, I got a guy, Bruce Bowen, who's the only person of any fame to reply to a tweet of mine. And I got Ralph Lawler, and so they didn't know that Lawler's Law was the first team to 100 wins. And then they actually have the percentage, and my one friend, who's a big Mets fan, by the way, who went to college with Dog and did broadcasts together down at Rollins College, he was floored by this information. He couldn't believe it. So there you go.
It plays out. It wins a lot.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it really is unbelievable. 2 p.m. Eastern time, Georgia State and Cincinnati. You've talked about a lot of teams being Cincinnati. Now you can talk about Cincinnati, and now we have that guy who who took the tournament by storm a couple of years ago as the head coach with his son as the point guard, and he broke his leg falling off the chair, right?
Ron Hunter. He will not be. Yeah, he's off the stool right now. But Mick Cronin has got. I mean, have you seen Gary Clark play? The guy's like a double machine for Cincinnati. It's strange. He's like a stud. They're 30-4. I did I want to say 5 Cincinnati games this year. It was weird. I was I kind of got plugged in. Like as I'm saying, I'm getting plugged into Memphis, Orlando, Phoenix, and Sacramento games for the NBA. I got plugged into the AAC this year for whatever reason. That's fine. I also did a lot of Big East games too. But Cincinnati, they play with that stupid chip on their shoulder, and they got that fiery Mick Cronin, and God bless it. They're going to, play the way they want to play, and they're going to play defense, and it's not going to be sexy. But Gary Clark, he's the stud for Cincinnati, and Cincinnati wins, and they're going to crush them.
Next up, we got 15 seed Lipscomb playing on a home turf here for North Carolina over in Charlotte. This will not be the day you're there, or it is?
I will be there.
You will be there.
I will
both
be there
days?
for the. Just the one day that we have. It goes Texas A&M Providence, North Carolina Lipscomb.
Gotcha.
Then we have 2 hours, and then I get the Kansas State Creighton. Then I get Virginia. Who the heck are they playing? The Retrievers. Yeah, UMBC.
So what are we? How's North Carolina looking this year? I have not watched a ton of them.
It's so weird. You haven't watched any of Luke May?
Well, I remember him from The Shot, right? That was a couple. Was that last year or wasn't that last year or 2 years ago?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that he can go hot and cold, and Joel Berry is awesome. It's so weird. Carolina is just a strange team in that they're kind of sort of inconsistent, but when they get hot, and they're real fun to watch. And they're going to sweep the floor. I mean, this is Lipscomb's, I think, their first tournament ever from the Atlantic Sun. They beat Florida Gulf Coast on their floor, which was kind of weird. But
NJIT's conference.
And USC Upstate, up the road in Spartanburg. But it's so funny. I talk about that. I talk about the Atlantic Sun. It makes no sense. The bizarre conference. But the Great West is defunct now for 5 years. But UNC, it's gonna be a damn home game for them. I mean, I'm going with my brother. He's gonna be wearing his UNC paraphernalia, whatever. But they're as good as their offense goes. And I mean, the other day I forget who they're playing. It might have been 2 weeks ago. Luke May, where is he? He's nowhere to be found. Kind of like that second half against Duke 2 weeks ago. All of a sudden, Carolina couldn't throw the ball anywhere, and they were up 10 at half, and then they wound up losing by 8 or whatever up in Durham. But exciting team to watch. It'll be a home game. I would give as many points as you could give, but Bowman in a landslide.
Next up, we have Butler and Arkansas at Little Caesars Arena in Detroit, which has not been a very out of the gates amazing place.
A kind arena to the Red Wings. So yeah, I've done a few Red Wings games this year as well.
Well, the Pistons. It seems like this was almost like a Brooklyn type move. Like it looks like they did the totally wrong thing here.
Yeah, but you have to. Detroit now is the first and only team to have all 4 major sports located centrally in their downtown. So I think that I like it, but doesn't mean it's right. But Butler, they were on the bubble. You were kind of wondering how they got in, but they play a tough conference too. They play a tough schedule too. Arkansas is just they're more athletic than Butler, but I don't know. I could go either way in this game. I personally like Butler, but that's just my heart. I'm going with my heart there. I don't think don't be surprised if Arkansas wins by 12.
It's pretty good to have a guard there. 18 points per game. Jalen Barford. Everyone named Jalen these days.
Yeah.
Next up, 4 p.m. Murray State and West Virginia.
Great game.
Yeah, I go to a coffee shop here in town. My favorite coffee I've ever tasted. And I sit next to a guy many mornings who's a VP at Google, and he's from the great state of West Virginia. He ended up going to Princeton, and he played for Pete Carrill at Princeton, but he always loved West Virginia, and he goes home for the games. He loves it. And at least from my discussions and interactions with him, this team has been as good as they are kind of heart-wrenching. Like they seem to giveth and taketh away from their fans. But they ended up 24-10, and here they are with the 5th seed. But is my feeling pretty correct?
It's absolutely correct. And West Virginia, I love Huggins, and how do you not love that team? Because they press all the time, but they're so weird because they could be so good and so physically intimidating, and then they could just go 20% from the field in a half and just look so awkward and so uncoordinated. And then you have Murray State. It's going to be the sexy 12 pick this year. Murray State. It's either Murray State or Belmont. It seems that comes out of that conference, and I don't know. Personally, I'm going to go West Virginia, but I wouldn't be surprised if Murray State comes up with the upset. But I'd like West Virginia in this matchup.
Next up, we have Texas and Nevada. I watched some Texas this year only as I was trying to watch them play against Oklahoma, and Texas ended up winning that game. And Texas has a top 5 pick in Mo Bamba, who is a major, I'd say, project on offense, but a defensive beast. And he's slotted again to go in the top 5, so he's going to be worth watching, I think. Not sure a lot about Nevada, but they are the higher seed. They're 27-7. Texas only had 19 wins. Where are we feeling on this game?
It's weird. It'll be I think Nevada got slighted because they lost in the semifinals in the Mountain West. And Eric Musselman, the head coach there, he's got the 3-man attack of Jordan Caroline and the Martin brothers, Caleb and Cody. I think Caleb's the Mountain West Player of the Year. It's weird. I had them against UNLV, and they almost lost to UNLV, which is strange. But they're very offensively. They're just very efficient. They got the whole thing going with, like I said, Caroline and the Martin brothers. I don't know. Mo Bamba, the guy's a freak. The guy's pretty damn good. I mean, he's no DeAndre Ayton or Wagner offensively, but guy's a big body, wide, get you boards. And I think Shaka Smart's, I don't know, he's a good coach, really good coach. And getting back to the coffee, have you had a Nitro Cobra yet?
No.
I got it. They got it here at 2 Starbucks locations here in Charlotte. It comes out of a keg. It's iced coffee that comes out of a keg. I'll send you pictures.
Is it cold brew?
I didn't. Yeah, it's cold brew. It's called Nitro Cobra. It's 5 times the caffeine than a regular drink. And I was like, sure, I'll have one.
Oh dear.
Yeah, and I was up for the rest of the night. But anyway,
wow.
It's funny. It looks like a Guinness.
That was like those. Remember the Ephedra?
Oh God!
And then we didn't even realize we were taking actual speed, and we would take it.
That shit was legal.
Yeah, it was speed. Yeah, you would buy it in just like a 7-Eleven and then take it and then sit down and read 2 books and do 1,000 push-ups and then still be awake at midnight. Man.
If you want some Nitro Cobra, come on down here and get a little bit of that.
Oh my God. Unbelievable.
Holy cow.
From Cobras to Creighton at the 8th seed playing Kansas State over there in Charlotte. I don't know a thing about either team.
Well, the coaching matchup, I'm assuming. You have Bruce Weber against Greg McDermott. Basically, the guard-oriented offense of Creighton should win. I mean, they're really, really quick. I'm not buying Kansas. Kansas State's kind of boring. I don't know. That's just me. And I like, even though Weber's got the Wildcats in there, I think it's 4 times in 6 years. And they did go 10-8 in a very good Big 12. I kind of watch. I don't know. I like McDermott. I think he's a better coach. So I'm going with the Blue Jays.
Next up, we have 14th seed Bucknell facing the aforementioned 3 seed Michigan State playing in Detroit. That is a very nice advantage, as if they needed one against Bucknell. But Michigan State is a team littered with NBA players, and I think just for that point, a lot of people are going to want to watch them, as well as head coach Tom Izzo.
Yeah, it's funny. I was going through some old footage, and before in Majerus's last game in 2012 or 2013. I think it was 2012. In Majerus's last game, he coached against Michigan State, and it's funny if you watch that post game press conference. Majerus is he's in absolute love with Draymond Green. He's like, oh, this guy, and like no one kind of knew about him, and it's funny if you go back to that. If you go on YouTube, you can catch that press conference, and everyone's like crying. Conklin's crying. Basically, the team knew that Majerus was going to die, and here's Majerus going, oh, yeah, that Green guy, he's the best pro prospect. He's phenomenal. He can do everything. Like, it's incredible how you can go back now and watch some of these games and these press conferences. So that's the thing. I like Michigan State's got, they have players that can develop, but who back then knew that Draymond Green was going to be as good as he was? You know what I mean? So,
no one did. He was a second rounder. And
that's what I'm saying. So it's like, it's incredible. It's incredible to listen to Majerus before he dies, just going on and on about Draymond Green.
Well, and how crazy is it when you think about everybody on that Golden State team, homegrown players, from Steph Curry to Klay Thompson to Draymond Green. Now, I know Steph Curry was a 7th pick, and I know Klay Thompson was a first-round pick, but when you watched Steph Curry in college, there was nothing like it. It was so much fun. It was like watching Trae Young at the beginning of this season, but I don't think any of us watched Steph Curry playing at Davidson and thought,
no, because we all thought he was undersized. We thought he was all undersized. There's no way he could, do that against NBA talent. He wasn't quick enough. He wasn't big enough. But he proved us all wrong.
I mean, that is one of the all-time shocks. He has not only done it, he's done it better. He's done it better at the pro level. I mean, you don't see that college. You see his kind of college guard more than enough. Not at those kind of levels. Like we said, Trae Young. But you see that kind of college guard thing where those UConn guards would take over or Kentucky guards would take over. But this guy took over at such a high level that you went, wow, he's a super college player. I don't think it's going to translate at the next level. We don't even know what he is. He's undersized. He's not a point guard. He's a combo guard. Minnesota went and drafted 2 other point guards before him. And you just look at it. So that is a fun thing that sometimes you should not let your eyes deceive you, that what you're seeing can move to the next level. Although then I would say on the flip side, how about, and you're right there in Charlotte, Malik Monk has become persona non grata. Like that guy was a major impact college basketball player, putting 45-point games up, and he's been completely unheard from in Charlotte.
Well, that's the problem. I mean, you're just living off potential. That's the problem, I think. Well, see, here's the other thing. Monk is 19 years old, 20 years old. See, that's the thing. Like, so 5 years from now, he could come out of nowhere. It's kind of like Lou Williams. Like, I was watching Lou because I was doing the Clippers the other night. It's like Lou Williams was one of those last players. He's one of those few players that like got drafted out of high school, and basically, he's kind of a role player, but he can put up really. A drifter, going from team to team to team. But it's like, holy cow, Lou Williams went straight from high school to the NBA. It's like, what the heck? Next thing you know, he's a really good pro player. And maybe that's just the future of the NBA. Like similar with Monk, are you just going to get, a guy who kind of, it's almost like these are his minor league years, basically. He's just going to kind of learn the craft, not play a lot, ride the pine, learn the game, and then all of a sudden explode. And I think he's just one. That's a great point. I mean, I just think he's one of many players that, and then to the other flip side is like you take Eddie Griffin. It's like Eddie Griffin was so great in college that 1 year at Seton Hall. And then next thing you know, he's got all these issues. That's what's so fascinating and fun and yet like strange at the same time with these players. Is that, you get drafted, you're great for 1 year, but then, you just basically live in obscurity when you get to the league. Or you just, transcend the game like Steph Curry did.
He was prolific, though, Malik Monk last year. And you know what? Even in the midst of what he was doing, when I watched him, and you can go back to the podcast and listen to it. It's not like Mike Francesa's show where all the stuff disappears, but you can go back and listen. And I said, I don't think this guy justifies the level of pick he's going to get, because I think his comp is Ben Gordon. I think he is a guy who, if you put the franchise on his shoulders, he will not justify that. But if you make him a super reserve who finishes the game in the fourth quarter, he could give you 20-point quarters, and he'll end up a really important contributor to your team, a necessary contributor, just like Ben Gordon ended up. He went to Chicago, and it wasn't until he got that sixth man, finishing the game, and then he was able to justify what he is as a player. And I just always felt that was going to be where Malik Monk was, because that was his best aspect, was the ability to heat up that fast and score at will.
Yeah, and then Ben Gordon, who, by the way, I think 2 weeks ago, just another armed robbery in the Bronx. But
is
anyway,
that right?
Yes, I swear to God. But anyway, it's just, that's the problem. I didn't mean to go there, but since you brought up Ben Gordon, afterwards, it's like you wonder what happened to these guys, because you have who's the other Ben Gordon. It's like, holy cow! Like, my brother was like, holy cow! You hear what happened to Ben Gordon? He's breaking and entering or something, robbery, cars.
Oh no, was that? Are you sure that wasn't Sebastian Telfair?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh wait, former NBA player Ben Gordon released on bail after weekend arrest.
What do you do? It's like
felony robbery, the latest in a recent string of troubling incidents. He's only 34.
I know, and then he's blaming his friends. He's like, "Oh, my friends made me do it." What are you doing?
Oh my God!
It's it's not a problem. I mean, it's just like, why don't you go to Europe and play? You know what I mean? It's like Jimmer Fredette is absolutely killing it in China right now, and it's like,
Steph Marbury.
That's what I'm saying. It's like
he's going to be a Hall of Famer because of that.
By the way, Steph Marbury was on with Tom Chambers and the pregame show a week ago or a week and a half ago, because it's Phoenix 40. They're celebrating Phoenix 40 years of basketball. Yeah,
and I love hearing Stefan talk.
He was there. Game. He was there in the pregame, the pre and post. With Tom Chambers and whoever. Yeah, Tom Chambers pretty good on that pre and post, by the way. At Talking Stick Resort Arena.
Officers responded to an apartment complex in downtown Los Angeles on Saturday morning where Gordon was renting 2 units. Gordon confronted the apartment manager about returning his security deposit and punched the manager in the face. He was then...
It's not funny. It's sad. It's so sad.
Oh my God, this is the best part. According to LAPD Public Information Officer Irma Mota, Gordon, according to Mota, who read from the police report, was then given part of his deposit back, only to return minutes later with a knife. Oh dear. That's just so maybe. Classic. And I didn't mean to go there, but since you said it, but you know what? Career-wise, Malik Monk would do well. Oh dear. Next up, we got
Kevin Ollie. Kevin Ollie got fired the other day.
I know, that's crazy. That is crazy. Next up, we got Xavier. Your team you love.
Love him. How do you not love Blewett and Mikura? I mean, how don't you? Now, the coach, fine, because he's playing this, I'm a nice guy, family man, and then he's MFing the refs. And I love Fox. I love Fox because you get the audio, and I love the Big East, how it's produced. It's so funny in doing, the job now is that it's kind of like you get different. Like, I just wrote a letter to the Dallas Stars. Darryl Ray, the play-by-play guy, he just wrote me back a handwritten letter. I'm a dork like that, but I just got a reply. I'll send you the picture later. Like, the Dallas Stars do a great job in their pre and post and their actual game, and I think the Big East does that. Anyway, so when you get the Big East games, you get like all the audio and just Chris Mack. I mean, who are you? He's some tough guy. Anyway, I just like their players. And, I think they're worthy of that 1 seed. I also like, what's this guy? The Cantor's little brother is the big man. They got O'Mara, the senior big man. They're just around. Yeah, Caron Butler. He's doing. What's Caron Butler? He's talking about UConn guards. Caron Butler's doing something. He's well spoken. He's doing something. What was he doing? Forget where.
He's on NBA
anyway,
TV. He does like the players only thing, like where he's
like the
sideline.
He's like Ben. Yeah, he's like Ben Gordon opposite.
And he came from really rough and tumble.
That's what I'm saying. Like what the heck, Yeah,
it's weird. He was in the Shaq trade. Next up, we have Charleston and Auburn. Bruce Pearl, right?
Yeah, the Tigers have come up from relative obscurity, and we got more talent than Charleston. This is a no-brainer, although if you're feeling risky, go with Charleston, but Auburn should have no problem.
You'll be seeing UMBC, the greatest bank. No, just kidding.
The Retrievers.
Playing Virginia and the aforementioned, 2 losses, holding teams to nothing. We're going to have to see how this thing plays out, because in a tournament where it's 1 win and moving on, offense can get hot and it can overcome shots. I think I was reading about their defense in a Sports Illustrated, and there was something like what they were saying, that as long as 70% of the shots or something are completely contested, they're happy with whatever the result is. And that really only teams who are hitting hard shots, like those old Vince Carter shots, can beat them. But that can happen in a tournament game.
Yeah, and Vince Carter is still making those shots for the Kings when he comes off the bench.
He sure is.
But Virginia, it still remains to be seen. We want to root for him. No problem against and UMBC. Hats off to them. They lost by double digits in both games in the regular season to Vermont. Go up to Patrick Gym, and beat Vermont at the buzzer in the America East Championship, which is tough because Vermont is the cream of the crop in that league. But once again, they can't break through in the championship game to get the postseason bid.
Next up, we have TCU playing, because I don't have this in the thing here. The thing I want to say about
the winner of
that's a good one.
Syracuse.
Arizona State, Syracuse. So the thing I like with TCU is that's where Jamie Dixon went after Pittsburgh thought that they were too good for him, and then they got to see over the preceding couple of years how good for them he was or not, while he got to go home and continue to build a very competitive team.
Yeah, new arena. Great conference. It's kind of like they kind of play like his style. They got the game. I did a few of their games this year. But I'm going to go out on a limb here. If Syracuse wins, I like Syracuse to beat TCU. And if Arizona State wins, I still like Arizona State to beat TCU, even though Arizona State bothers me. I like the upset here in this game, in this matchup.
Next up, 9:50 p.m. This is where it gets tough when you reach the end of Friday and there's still a 9:50 and 9:57 p.m.
That's when you have a Nitro Cobra, bro.
That's when you have a Nitro or an ephedrine. Florida State, Missouri. It's a good matchup in Nashville.
See, that's like that game. Like I have no interest in that game at all. Like I really don't. I have no interest in that at all. I guess the new kid from Missouri. I mean, I guess that's the draw.
Oh, he's gonna play, right?
Yeah, Michael Porter Jr.
See, that's cool. That's kind of cool. Like, to make it back.
I guess. But, I mean, I don't know. I have my own opinions. It's just, it just doesn't do it for me.
Like, he's literally going to be, like,
he'll play 2 games.
The 5th pick.
He'll play 2 games and then be the 5th pick. But it's like, none of these guys that are going to the NBA are going to class anyway in the spring semester. So you're only going to college for 1 semester anyway. So it's the whole thing's dumb, but whatever.
That would be pretty cool if he showed up and just took him on a run like Verlander. And then last up, Friday night, New Mexico State playing Clemson. Now I read the former New Mexico State coach left to coach New Mexico and then didn't make it, and then this guy made it with this team. And obviously Clemson, you're probably very familiar with them being in the area. They've kind of turned themselves into quite a basketball team, and then they have the much sought after Zion Williamson. Is it going?
No, he's going to Duke.
Oh, he's going to Duke. He was thinking about Clemson, right?
Right, and a lot of Clemson fans were upset because, he's from he goes to Spartanburg Day, just right up the road, and wound up choosing Duke.
So what are we thinking there?
We're thinking here, let's get Chris Jans, the coach at New Mexico State, goes 28-5 in the WAC. And he was the guy, and this is terrible, but he was the guy 2 or 3 years ago or whenever it was. You can go to YouTube and check this out. He slapped a girl on the butt or whatever at a bar after a Bowling Green game or whatever. And then after he took Bowling Green in his first year, he was an assistant for Wichita State for like 8 years. Gets his first gig at Bowling Green. They go 21-12, and then after a game one night, he's married, he's loaded. You could tell just by the video, he's loaded, and he slaps a girl on the behind. And Bowling Green says, "See ya." So Chris Jans in his second, here we go. We're gonna get one more shot. He goes 28-5. I don't know. Clemson is strange, but I like and my heart is telling me to go with the Aggies and New Mexico State, but I'm picking Clemson only because I think they're actually good. I think they're more athletic. I saw them play against Syracuse, and I saw them play 4 or 5 other games. I like Clemson.
So after all that said, who do we have as who's going to be a surprise that pushes through here? I don't think necessarily a Cinderella is going to win it, but who's gonna surprise here that we're not thinking? Someone like Alabama, Kentucky, maybe.
Yes, I mean, don't get surprised with Kentucky making a deep run. I also wouldn't be surprised Michigan as a 3 seed making even to the Final Four. So, like, if you had to ask me what my surprise teams out of the regions are, I'm going to say Kentucky from the South. I'm going to say Michigan from the West. From the Midwest, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's probably going to be, from the Midwest, I don't know.
Boy, we want Oklahoma, don't we?
Yeah, I guess, maybe. And then from the East, I wouldn't be surprised with West Virginia taking it all the way. But, I don't know. The Midwest just doesn't do it for me. It's like you got Kansas, Michigan State, and Duke. So, I mean, those are like blue bloods. You're probably going to get one of those 3. So those aren't, I don't expect any surprises out of the Midwest. But if you had to ask me, I wouldn't be surprised, like I said, Kentucky from the South, Michigan from the West, and with the East, a West Virginia or even a Wichita State. I don't know. But Purdue probably goes from the East.
Cool. Well, that wasn't too bad. If we didn't have our little side conversations, it might have been close to an hour. It's like an hour 20. So that's pretty good. I think we can pick them up maybe with a couple Facebook Lives as we go forward and see where this magic of March takes us.
Absolutely, man. Always have fun doing it. Thanks for having me on, and look forward to doing the Facebook Live.